What if the face haunting your dreams was buried in your own backyard? For 24 years, Elias Munro believed he was just an ordinary boy with a forgotten past. But when he began whispering the name Isabel in his sleep and sketching a woman he had never met, everything changed. No birth records, no childhood memories, just a bricked-over well behind a decaying Victorian home. And a truth the town tried to bury. Who was the woman in the blue dress? And why did everyone seem terrified of what Elias might uncover? This isn't just a story about memory. This is about identity, justice, and the chilling power of silence. Because some secrets don't stay buried, they claw their way back from beneath the garden. Elias Munro woke gasping for air, sweat slicking his brow, despite the cold draft sneaking in through the cracked window of his attic bedroom. The remnants of the dream clung to his consciousness, always the same. A woman in a blue dress falling, her mouth open in a silent scream, one hand reaching up before the darkness swallowed her. His fingers trembled as he turned on the lamp beside his bed. The amber glow flickered, illuminating the worn sketchpad already lying open. With mechanical precision, Elias grabbed the graphite pencil and began drawing again. He didn't need to think. The image came as if traced by memory, the same desperate hand, the folds of fabric, the shape of a well's circular mouth yawning wide beneath her. But tonight, something was different. He paused, frowned, and scrawled a name beneath the sketch before he even realized what he was writing. Isabel. He stared at the name. His heart thudded louder than the wind against the windows. He didn't know an Isabel. Not in his books, not from work, not in real life. Yet the name made his skin prickle like it had been waiting to surface for years. The House of Pages bookstore smelled of old pages and cinnamon tea, a comfort Elias clung to in the haze of sleeplessness. Lila Bennett raised a brow as he nearly knocked over a stack of discount paperbacks. "Another long night?" she asked gently. "Something like that," Elias murmured, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. Lila slid into the chair beside him in the back room. "You've been distant lately. Want to talk about it?" Elias hesitated, then nodded. "I keep having the same dream. There's this woman. She's falling into a well. Every time I wake up, I feel like I've lost her all over again." Lila leaned forward. "You think she's real?" "I don't know, but last night I wrote a name. Isabel. I don't know how I know it." She studied his face, expression unreadable. "Elias, have you ever seen your adoption records?" He blinked. "No. Charles always brushed off any questions. Said I was left with them when I was 4, that's it. Maybe it's time you start looking." That evening, Elias wandered through the backyard of the Whitaker estate. The garden was a tangle of weeds and brittle branches. He stepped over uneven earth until he stopped near a patch where the ground was strangely sunken. His breath caught, wind whipped through the overgrown hedges, and in the silence, he remembered a voice. Charles's voice, firm and sharp. "You stay away from that patch. There's nothing there for you." Elias knelt, brushed away some of the grass. The soil was hard-packed, unnaturally so. A pulse of cold rushed up his spine. Was this the well from his dreams? He stood, heart thundering. Maybe the dream wasn't just a dream. The study smelled of old cologne and stale paper. Charles was out, and Elias had one chance. He moved fast, bypassing the main drawers until he reached the lowest one, locked. A bobby pin from Margaret's sewing room did the trick. Inside, tucked beneath ledgers and old receipts, he found a weathered photo. A woman stood in profile, her expression gentle, her dark hair pulled into a braid over one shoulder. She wore a pale blue dress. On the back, Isabel Moreno, 2003. Elias's knees nearly gave way. Charles Whitaker stared at the photo Elias held up with trembling hands. "Where did you get that?" he asked, voice cold. "Who is she?" Elias demanded. "Why was this hidden? Why do I dream about her?" Charles's expression darkened. "You're chasing ghosts. That woman has nothing to do with you. Then why does her name feel like it belongs to me?" Charles slammed his glass onto the desk. "Drop it, Elias. Don't go digging into the past. You won't like what you find." That night, Elias tossed in bed, clutching the photo. The dream returned, but this time there was more. A child's voice crying, echoing from the depths of the well, and his own voice, younger, screaming into silence. He sat bolt upright in bed, the name escaping his lips like breath. Mama! Silverwood Town Hall creaked with age, each floorboard a whisper of secrets buried long ago. The walls were lined with dusty filing cabinets, and a faint smell of mildew clung to the air. Lila walked beside Elias as they entered the records office, where Gavin Whitaker, middle-aged, bespectacled and guarded, sat behind a metal desk covered in paperwork. "You're Charles's boy?" Gavin asked, squinting at Elias. Elias nodded cautiously. "Adopted. I'm trying to find proof. I need to know who I really am." Gavin scratched his chin. "You came to the right man, though Charles won't like it." "I'm not here for his approval," Elias said firmly. Gavin stood. "Let's take a look. But don't expect the truth to be simple. In this town, it never is." Stacks of files later, Gavin pulled one from a locked cabinet. "Here, Elias Monroe. Adoption finalized in 2004. He opened the folder. Lila leaned over Elias's shoulder. "What's that name?" she asked, pointing. "Raymond Green," Gavin read. "Filed the papers, but Raymond died in 2002, 2 years before this document was signed." Elias's pulse quickened. "So it's forged. At the very least, falsified," Gavin said, "and no mention of a birth certificate. Whoever you were before 4 years old, it's not in here." Lila put a hand on Elias's arm. "We'll find it. Whatever it is, we'll find it." Gavin nodded. "And I'll help. Charles and I haven't spoken in years, but I always knew something was wrong with the way you showed up." Later that evening, Elias, Lila, and Gavin stood at the edge of the Whitaker estate's backyard. The sky had turned a dusky blue, casting long shadows across the overgrown garden. "It's right here," Elias whispered, pointing to the patch of earth he'd uncovered days ago. Gavin crouched, ran his fingers across the soil. "This used to be a well," he murmured. "I remember when they sealed it. I was just a teenager. Charles said it was dangerous, but something about the way it was done always felt wrong." Elias took a step back. "This is the place I keep dreaming about. I think someone's down there." Lila paled. "You think it's your mother?" Elias looked down. "I don't know, but I know I won't sleep again until I find out." That night, Elias woke up outside. The moon cast silver light over the yard. His fingers were muddy, torn at the nails. A small hole had been dug in the soil where the well once stood. Lila rushed to him, wrapping a blanket around his shoulders. "Elias, I've been looking everywhere. What are you doing out here?" He stared into the hole, dazed. "She was calling me." "Who?" He held something up, a torn piece of fabric, stained and faded, but unmistakably blue. "She left this for me, to remember." Lila knelt. Beside him, her voice trembling. "This isn't just a dream, is it?" Elias shook his head. "It never was." Margaret stood frozen at Elias's doorway, her hands clutched to her chest. She had just witnessed him thrashing in his sleep, muttering one name over and over again. "Isabel, Isabel." She turned to Charles. "You said it was buried. You said it was over." Charles sat in his chair, unmoved. "He doesn't know what he's saying. You lied to me. I protected you." Margaret's voice broke. "You didn't protect anyone." Elias stirred, then sat up, eyes wide and glassy. "She's real," he whispered, "and she didn't leave. She was taken." Margaret couldn't stop her tears. "She worked here. Isabel. She vanished one night, and we never spoke of it again." Elias's face hardened. "Then it's time we did." Rain tapped gently on the parlor windows of the Whitaker estate as Elias sat opposite Margaret. Her teacup trembled in her hand. Across from her, Elias waited in silence, the faded photo of Isabel Moreno lying between them like a ghost made visible. "I need the truth," Elias said quietly. Margaret's eyes didn't meet his. "She wasn't your mother." Elias's stomach tightened. "Then who was she?" Margaret finally looked up. "Isabel was your aunt. Your real mother was her twin sister, Mariana." The room felt smaller somehow. the walls inching inward. She left you with Isabel to keep you safe. I never knew where she went. One day she was just gone. And Isabel? Elias whispered. Margaret's voice cracked. She wanted to protect you, but Charles, he said she threatened everything we'd built. Elias stood slowly. She didn't disappear. She was buried. Back in the attic, Elias rummaged through boxes of forgotten heirlooms and yellowing papers. A loose panel in the eaves caught his eye. He pried it open, and behind it, a small cloth bundle fell out. Inside were brittle pages of a journal written in a looping hand. I feel eyes on me even when I'm alone. Charles insists I keep quiet about Mariana's child, but I won't let anything happen to him. If something happens to me, I want someone to know. I tried. Lila, standing behind him, gasped. She knew she was in danger. Elias turned to her, eyes filled with resolve. She wasn't crazy, she was cornered, and she paid the price. Gavin unrolled the yellowed blueprint of the Whitaker estate on his dining table, tracing his finger across the backyard layout. This here, he said, pointing to a faded circle, was an old well, sealed in 2004, same year you were adopted. Elias stared. That's exactly where I found the fabric, the place in my dreams. Gavin nodded. We'll request a permit for excavation, but knowing my uncle, he'll try to block it. Elias clenched his jaw. Then we find another way. 2 days later, the Silverwood Planning Office sent a letter. Permit denied. Excavation of historical site not authorized without further evidence. Gavin slammed the file shut. Charles pulled strings. Again, Elias dropped into the chair. He's still controlling everything, even from behind lies. Lila looked between them. Then go to the press, or start a petition. Force it into the public eye. Gavin nodded slowly. It's time this story wasn't just whispered in corners. That night, Elias walked into the study where Charles sat sipping scotch by the fire. I'm going to dig, Elias said. Charles didn't look up. You dig that up, you destroy yourself. No. Elias stepped forward. I set myself free. Charles's voice grew quiet. You think you want the truth, but you don't, not really. Elias leaned in. The truth's already inside me. You just buried it with her. Charles's glass trembled, but Elias didn't wait for a reply. He turned and walked out toward the well, the dark, and everything still waiting to be unearthed. The first light of dawn broke through the fog as a flatbed truck pulled into the gravel driveway of the Whitaker estate. A small, rusted excavator stood chained to the bed. Gavin stepped out of the passenger seat and motioned to the driver, a tall, bearded man in overalls. Elias, this is Benjamin Perry, Gavin said. He's discreet. Been in construction since the 90s. Benjamin tipped his cap. You point, I dig. Elias, pale but resolute, nodded toward the backyard. It's there, under the ivy, where the ground feels too still. Benjamin gave a curt nod. Let's get to work before anyone starts asking questions. As the machine roared to life, dirt and roots flew into the air. The rhythm of steel on earth was both violent and cleansing. By midday, the ivy had been cleared, and Benjamin's excavator hit something solid. He climbed down and brushed at the ground with a shovel, revealing a jagged ring of concrete. This ain't just an old planter, he muttered. Elias knelt beside it. The scent hit him instantly, damp, sour, and ancient. It's the well, he whispered, from the dreams. Gavin frowned. We have to be careful. If there's something inside, it's a potential crime scene. Benjamin looked between them. So what do you want to do? Elias's voice didn't waver. Break it open. Using a jackhammer, Benjamin chipped at the concrete lid. After nearly an hour, the cover cracked and fell inward with a hollow, echoing sound. Gavin tied a flashlight to a rope and lowered it into the black mouth of the well. As the beam swung gently, it caught something white. Wait, Elias whispered. Stop it there. The beam settled. Bones, curved, human. Gavin's stomach turned. God. Elias backed away, collapsing to his knees. She's real. Isabel, she's really down there. Benjamin stared into the dark. You need to call the police, now. An hour later, 3 squad cars lined the Whitaker driveway. Yellow tape cordoned off the backyard. Lieutenant Carmen Walker stepped out, her heels crunching on the gravel. She surveyed the scene with practiced eyes. "Who found the site?" "I did," Elias said, rising slowly. Carmen nodded. "You'll need to make a statement. We'll begin forensic recovery immediately." A forensics team lowered cameras and tools into the well. Carmen motioned Gavin aside. "You understand this is now under criminal investigation?" Gavin nodded. "We expected that." From behind them, Elias watched as gloved hands worked their way down into the earth. Hours passed. Then came the moment. The forensics team lifted a bundle of bones wrapped in remnants of faded fabric, tattered but unmistakably blue. Elias's breath hitched. He stumbled forward, clutching Gavin's arm. "That's it," he gasped. "The dress from the dreams." Carmen raised a hand. "We'll need DNA to confirm." Elias nodded, tears stinging his eyes. "Test mine. Do whatever it takes. Just find the truth." Carmen's voice softened. "We will. I promise." As the sun set over the unearthed past, Elias stood beside the gaping wound in the earth. For the first time in his life, the silence felt like it might finally be broken. The following morning, Elias sat in the sterile waiting room of the forensic lab, his foot bouncing restlessly. The air buzzed with fluorescent lighting and quiet tension. Across from him, Lila gripped his hand, her fingers cold. Dr. Carmen Walker entered, a thick file pressed to her chest. "Elias," she said, her voice even, "we got the results." He stood slowly, bracing himself. "The remains are confirmed to be Isabel Moreno. The DNA match is 99.9%. Elias nodded, swallowing hard. "So, she's not my mother?" "No," Carmen said. "We also ran a comparison against your DNA for maternal lineage. There's no direct match." Gavin, who had just entered, furrowed his brow. "Then, who is?" Dr. Walker hesitated. "There's another name that surfaced during the recheck of regional birth records, a Mariana Moreno." Lila blinked. "Isabel's sister?" "Yes," Carmen confirmed. "And Elias, Mariana is your biological mother." Back at Gavin's office, a faded photograph lay on the desk. It showed a young woman, identical to Isabel but with shorter hair, holding a baby wrapped in a pale blue blanket. Written on the back, Mariana and Marcus, 2004. Gavin tapped the name. "That's you, isn't it?" Elias stared at the photo. "Marcus, she left you with Isabel when she fled," Gavin said quietly. "And something happened before she could return." Elias clenched his jaw. "Charles knew. He's been hiding this from me for 20 years. Lila touched his shoulder. "Then it's time he answers for it." Charles Whitaker answered the door in a cardigan, feigning confusion when Lieutenant Carmen arrived with 2 officers. "This is absurd," he muttered. "There's no proof. We have Isabel's remains," Carmen cut in, "and forged adoption records traced back to your office. You're under arrest for obstruction of justice and falsification of legal documents." "You don't understand what she was trying to do," Charles hissed as the cuffs clicked shut. "What you did," Elias interrupted, stepping out from behind the officers, "was murder." Charles looked at him, something between shame and fury clouding his eyes. "I did what was necessary," he said. "You were a mistake I tried to fix." That night, Elias found a plain envelope tucked into the bookstore's mail slot. No return address, just his name, Marcus. Inside was a letter written in looping handwriting. "I tried to come back for you. I was told I'd never see you again if I did. I don't know if you'll ever find this, but I hope you do. I named you Marcus because it meant brave. I never stopped loving you. Mom." Elias's hands trembled as he passed the letter to Lila. "She's alive," he whispered. "Or at least, she was." Lila touched his hand. "We'll find her." 2 weeks later, Elias stood before a clerk at the county courthouse. "Changing your legal name?" the clerk asked, typing. "Yes," Elias said, "to Marcus Elias Moreno." The clerk nodded. "Approved. You'll receive confirmation in the mail." Outside, Lila waited beside the courthouse steps. Marcus approached her with a soft smile. "I'm done hiding," he said. Lila returned the smile. "Then let's start living." As they walked away together, the town clock rang noon. The shadows felt a little lighter. Marcus glanced up at the sky. I'm Marcus Moreno, and I'm not a secret anymore. Sunlight filtered through the branches overhead, casting warm gold over the freshly tilled soil. Marcus stood alone at the center of the garden, his shoes brushing against white petals. The ground where the well had once stood was now a circular bed of white chrysanthemums and vivid bougainvillea. A granite memorial stone gleamed in the morning light. Etched into its surface were the words, "In memory of Isabel Moreno," a sister, a guardian, a voice never forgotten. He knelt and placed a small bouquet at the base of the stone. A moment of silence stretched out. The wind was soft, almost like a breath. "She's here," Marcus whispered, "but not trapped, not anymore." Behind him, Lila and Gavin approached, slowly. "It's beautiful," Lila said, her voice thick. Gavin nodded. "The town showed up to help. No one's calling you crazy anymore." Marcus stood. "They called me a ghost boy, but now people leave flowers. They remember her name." Lila touched the stone. "And yours? You gave her story an ending." "No," Marcus corrected softly. "A beginning." A crowd gathered under the canopy erected for the dedication ceremony. Reporters, town officials, former skeptics. Marcus stepped up to the podium, holding his note cards but not looking at them. "I used to think silence protected people," he began. "But silence is where the worst things grow. For 20 years, a woman lay buried beneath this garden. For 20 years, I lived in a house built on that silence." He paused. A breeze rustled the trees. "My name is Marcus Elias Moreno, and I remember." The audience stilled. "I remember the dreams, the crying, the blue dress. I thought I was broken. I thought remembering made me wrong. But remembering was the only thing that made me real." Lila wiped a tear from her cheek. Marcus continued, "This garden is more than flowers. It's proof that no one is too buried to be found, that even the smallest voice can echo through stone. Isabel was my aunt. She loved me when no one else could. And now we remember her, out loud." The applause was long and steady. A few people in the crowd cried openly. 3 months later, the back room of the House of Pages bookstore buzzed with quiet energy. Marcus sat at a round table with Lila and Gavin. Papers covered the table, grant forms, partnership letters, logos. "The Moreno Foundation," Lila said, passing him the final version of the letterhead. "For children of the missing, for survivors of silence." Marcus traced the words. "She would have loved this." Gavin sipped his coffee. "And you're giving your name to something that'll outlive all of us." Marcus smiled. "That's the point." An envelope sat unopened in front of him. From the National Association of Child Advocacy. He opened it, scanned the first line, and exhaled. "They're giving us a starting grant, enough to launch 3 regional offices." Lila grinned. "This is happening." Marcus leaned back. "We're not ghosts anymore. We're builders." Boston. A crowd filled the commons during a rally for missing persons. Posters, candles, and faces on banners swayed in the summer air. Marcus stood at the edge of the platform, waiting to speak. His eyes scanned the crowd. Instinctively, then he saw her. A woman, dark hair tied back, olive skin, familiar eyes, stood behind a row of school children watching him. She wasn't holding a sign. She wasn't crying. She simply watched. His breath caught. "Lila," he whispered, nudging her. "Do you see?" But the woman was gone, slipped into the crowd like smoke. He stepped off the platform, pushing past people. "Wait, please!" No trace. Lila reached his side. "Was it her?" He nodded slowly. I think Mariana saw me." They stood in silence, letting the possibilities settle. 2 years later, a small wooden sign creaked in the breeze. "Isabel's Cafe, where stories begin." Inside, children laughed around a reading circle. Sunlight streamed through lace curtains. The scent of cinnamon, old paper, and fresh bread mingled in the air. Marcus stood behind the counter, pouring tea for an elderly customer. Helen, Lila's younger sister, typed quietly at a table near the window. Lila approached with a watering can. "The bougainvillea's blooming again." Marcus glanced out the window. "She would have liked that." He turned to the back wall. A framed photo of Isabel in a blue dress hung beside a plaque. To Isabel Moreno, the woman who was never meant to be forgotten. Leela joined him, slipping her hand into his. "You did it, Marcus. You brought her back." He nodded. "No one is buried anymore," he whispered. "Not even the truth. What if the person you called father was the very one who buried your truth?" Elias's journey reminds us that sometimes the deepest secrets lie closest to home, beneath gardens, behind smiles, inside silence. But here's what's even more haunting. How many Eliases are out there, dismissed as delusional when they're simply remembering what others want to forget? If you had one chance to uncover a buried truth from your past, would you dig or would you look away? Tell us in the comments, what part of this story resonated with you the most? If stories like this move you, shake you, and make you think twice about the world we live in, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. We bring you emotional, gripping narratives like The Echo Beneath the Garden, where truth battles silence and forgotten voices finally rise. Join us and never miss a chance to uncover what's been hidden.